And we're live.
Good evening. It is January the 3rd. It is a whole new year, and we are Dead Sun Entertainment bringing you the Mr. Video Game Super Show live show. Yeah.
Is that a New Year whistle?
Yes. Really, really shitty
One
New
of those
Year's whistle. I'm
Bengals.
sorry.
We stream every week here at twitch.tv/Dead Sun Entertainment, and with backups now actually going to youtube.com/CBGP Games.
Gasp.
I'm your
Right.
I'm your sick host, Blacker Kite. I will be bumbling my way through our New Year's episode. Welcome, everybody.
Hey, New Year's! Happy New Year, everybody.
Yeah.
We, of course, as always, have our wonderful lady of the house. It is Joan, aka Lady Goggles.
I need Animal Crossing Switch in my life yesterday. It said 2019, so the fact that I don't have it in my hands right now is very upsetting.
It is 2019. That is a fact. And our other lady of the house, it is Brian, aka Wonder Boy.
Yay!
I was about to say that I was about to make the same comment that I thought I was the lady of the house, but it's cool. You got ahead of me, and I'm perfectly fine with that.
We can both be the lady of the house. It's not exclusive.
Yeah, two ladies. All right. Now, real quick though, Slacker, describing yourself as the sick host of the show, that can go both ways. You might feel bad, but also you're pretty rad. So,
Hell yeah,
sick
throw
host
them
of
forth.
the show.
Like, you're sick, but you're sick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how we doing? Are we ready to bring the noise and/or the funk tonight?
Well, I'm already bringing the funk because I haven't showered. So, yes!
Woo! I also
Hooray.
haven't showered because my clothes are in the washer.
Ah,
But, you know,
stereotypical
Yay!
gamers and they're not showering.
That's
I
cool.
know.
I got a shitload of leftover candy canes, so I'm feeling fresh and good. Let's get this shit going.
Damn, dude, I want candy canes.
So we are going to be starting off with our top games of the year and just discussing what they are, why they are, how they are, and we're going to start with Brian at his number 3 because, Brian is the best person. That's just how it is.
I will, I guess, accept that title, even though I don't know what I did to deserve it. But sure. So number 3 of 2018 for me was Marvel's Spider-Man. We talked at length about this game both on this show as well as in our gaming streams earlier this year, and really, when it comes down to it, the main reason why this thing made my list was because it's just pure fun. Like, it really captures all of the action elements that you expect from a Spider-Man game in probably the best package ever produced for a Spider-Man game. I know a lot of people looked to Spider-Man 2 as being the quintessential Spider-Man game for the longest time, and that as soon as this thing came out, people were like making all of the memes, knocking that copy of that game out of the frame to put this one up there. It was for good reason. I mean, they give you so much to do. They make the fluidity of movement so seamless. Outside of maybe a few instances, such as those stupid like target chase missions that they put in there like in every game like this. But really, it just delivers on the experience of flying around New York City, having those powers of just being able to just fly unburdened at all times with that. That being said, the story was all right. I mean, obviously, if you know anything about Spider-Man, a lot of the plot points were they could be seen from like miles away. I'm pretty sure everyone knew as soon as you saw Dr. Otto Octavius. I wonder who's going to show up in this thing. um, you know, so like, and it had a good mix of villains. It just didn't do enough with those villains. I feel like, I think Mr. Negative had a pretty good portrayal up until he just became a bit player in the Sinister Six second plot line of the game that really didn't go as in depth as it needed to, especially for something that carries as much weight in the Spider-Man universe as the Sinister Six does. You know, and I can't remember if Hollis and I had our discussion on stream or not about like where the story goes in the end game, you know, but like it really does some things that I didn't agree with in the end game of the story, but it didn't ruin it for me. It left like a little bit of a bad taste, but it didn't make me feel like I had wasted my time with it. And also that being said, sorry.
It does seem like they set up a lot of room for DLC and you know, sequels. A lot of things just left open.
Yeah, they definitely did. I mean, the whole Black Cat mission system, like that just set up entirely for a DLC chapter. So that was frustrating that the payoff for that was just like, hey, we got a DLC coming and you'll run into Black Cat there. Cool, extra money. But like that being said, I did like how they incorporated Mary Jane and especially Miles Morales into the story as well. You know, Miles is like one of the more interesting characters in the Spider-Man universe to me, just because of what he represents in terms of presenting a different cultural identity to the costume and to the hero itself. So seeing them actually implement Miles into the story and really choose to tell his origin story rather than Peter's. Whenever most people, I mean, let's tell you, every Spider-Man franchise starts with the origin story for the most part. Outside of Spider-Man Homecoming a couple years ago, every one of these things just rehashes the Uncle Ben murder. And the fact that they did not do that and they just picked up with him like on the job for a while, and you got to see Miles have that sort of a coming of age moment where he discovers what he's truly capable of, even before he gets his spider powers. You know, it really made the game that much more engrossing for me. It made it feel have that much more heart, personally.
Yeah, it's a very different Spider-Man game from all the ones that I've seen and played so far. It really seems to understand the Spider-Man universe. Now, granted, I kind of mostly followed Spider-Man up to the 90s, so I don't really know Miles Morales that well. So it was a good introduction to me to see him in this game. So it was fairly positive for me. You know, I understand. You know, there's whole different worlds with Spider-Man, and I haven't seen into the Spider-Verse and all of that, but that there is a whole lot more going on than I'm aware of. So it does leave me a little bit outside the loop. But from the Spider-Man that I remember, it's very honest to the character that was portrayed. And I've seen some really bad comic book video games before that really don't seem to understand what this hero is, and more just, hey, this is somebody that punches bad dudes. Cool.
Oh yeah, I would even say that was still present in this game. You know, like we're looking at the fighting right now on the stream, and like, you know, a lot of the fights has happened against like you versus like masked thugs or like just like unnamed criminals, unnamed prison inmates. You know, just there's a lot of like, it's one of the criticisms I had about it was just like kind of the representation of the enemies in some ways, and also here with the homeless woman, some of the depictions of the homeless community in the game were kind of frustrating as well. But you know, no game is perfect, and I feel like you know, Spider-Man still delivered a fun experience, even though I can't believe I forgot about this. You also can't forget about the Spider Cop thing. Like, you know, there's definitely things to critique within the game in terms of how it like approaches the cultural touchstones of the environment that it came out around.
Right.
But that being said, it's still, you know, a game that I booted it up. I booted it up a couple weeks ago. Granted, I had to download the New Game Plus update, but no, I booted it up then and was meant to play it, but unfortunately I didn't get a chance to. So it's still a game I want to go back to, and it's one of the few games that I'm actually contemplating looking into getting the DLC, especially the Black Cat one. I've heard such good things about. So
I think that says a lot about a game too. If you want to go back to it after you're done with it, like say what you will about Final Fantasy 15, but I've occasionally picked it up and poked around back into it again because just trying to remember some things about it really interests me, and that's how you know that a game really got you more than anything is that after you're done with it, it sticks with you. You haven't put it. Oh yeah, that was an experience. Moving on. And that's the way I
Yeah,
see a lot of people react to Spider-Man.
not wrong.
But yeah, it's no surprise Spider-Man hit a lot of people's top lists this year. Um, it's just a fucking good game. I am not as much a open world guy. Even Breath of the Wild wasn't really my game. I still enjoyed it because it's fucking Zelda. Hi, but still.
Yeah, no, I mean that makes sense. Like, honestly, some of the open world stuff was also a bit tedious as well. Like, just the sheer amount of side missions that you can do in that game. And I did them all, and dear God, did it take me a long time, and they were not all worth the effort at all. But they did not have a lack of content at all.
Should we move on to my number 3 then, or?
Sure.
Oh yeah, I think unless anybody else has anything to say, I think I've said my piece about old web slinger over there. So
Joan, you want to say anything about Spider-Man first?
I as somebody who hasn't played it, hasn't seen too much of it, something that you said, Brian, really stuck with me. The fact that the game starts in media res. What a very interesting and better way to start a Spider-Man game, because like you were saying, like everybody and the mother, I don't even follow comic books or anything like that, and I know what happened to Uncle Ben. It's like you get tired of
Yeah.
hearing it. So the fact that they started the game like that was really refreshing. But other than that, I have a slight fondness for it because it's I'm from New York City, and seeing the city itself like rendered, and they put so much care into getting all the different neighborhoods and the style of them, and even things like the tower, where the twin towers used to be. Now they got that tower. Like, it's the little bit of details like that was. Like I said, I haven't played it, but from watching the gameplay footage and such, it was really nice seeing that that element of craft going into it. But as far as the game itself, like I really have nothing to say about it otherwise.
Fair enough. I do remember coming downstairs several times, and Josh, would just be swinging around, be like, "Oh no, go over there. That's where blah blah street is."
Oh yeah.
it's always fun playing an open world game in a city you actually know.
Yeah, I would tell him like, oh, if you go
Yeah.
if you go over there, it's Rockefeller Center, and if you go down that street, that's where the Pokemon Center is, and then there's Kinokuni, it's a Japanese bookstore, and blah blah blah.
Right on.
All right, should we move on to yours?
Yeah. So my number 3 is Celeste. First things first.
Ooh.
The most rocking soundtrack of the year, hands down. That game, if it got anything right, it's the music. Everything about that soundtrack was fantastic. If this isn't even your style of platformer or style of game, I still recommend giving a listen just to the soundtrack alone. But beyond that, it is the most inviting game of its style I've ever played. Whereas other games of the tough as nails platformer puzzle challenge variety tends to be, oh, we're going to shove you in there and you're going to fucking grind it out, man. Celeste comes into
Sorry,
Gonna shove it in and grind it out.
just that phrasing. I can't help it.
it's
Alright.
fine. It's fine. Maybe a little bit of you know what? Never mind. We're going to move on with beyond
Yeah.
phrasing.
Yeah.
You might help.
The game tells you from the very start that you don't have to collect any of the side items. That this is a game for you to enjoy. It presents to you off the bat. Here are your options to turn on invincibility, to turn on extra jumps, turn on whatever you want to. We want you to experience a game the way you experience it. which is refreshing. I didn't opt to do that, and I didn't opt to do all of the strawberries in my playthrough, which was fine for me. I've watched other people go through and get all of the collectibles, and that's a deep dive. If you are the type of person who wants a serious fucking balls to the wall challenge, Celeste delivers that too. There's B sides to the level, there's even fucking C sides to these levels, which I don't understand how a cassette has a C side either, but there you go. Maybe it's near a lake? I don't fucking know. Either way, it's just enjoyable. The plot line is great. There's wonderful moments throughout the game. Things like picturing yourself as a feather in the wind, and then actually using that feather as a power up in one of the stages. It's just fucking great metaphor. It's a game that anybody who's ever had clinical anxiety in their life probably needs to at least watch at some point, because it's a beautiful game. It's mechanically driven, precise gameplay mechanic. It's hard to really do a better indie game than Celeste, and to me, there is still one better indie game of the year. But man, with the team that they had, they produced something that it's going to be on my top games of all time, probably for the rest of my life.
Nice. Yeah, it's definitely one that I've watched it from a distance just because I haven't had a chance to play it. But it's one of those that really spoke to me when I first saw it. Like back in, I think it was released in January, if I'm not mistaken. Correct?
Correct. Yeah, this was a very early release.
Yeah. So like as soon as this thing launched in January, like it drew me in. I feel bad that I really haven't gotten a chance to give it a try personally yet, but I am glad to say that thanks to a very generous birthday present from someone, or not birthday, Christmas present from someone, was able to pick it up last night on the Steam sale.
Nice.
So I'm looking forward to playing this thing and really just testing my mettle. Outside of the commentary within the game, because there's so much to be said about the commentary within the game, but in terms of just being a straight up pure platform like masterpiece, I can't think of another game that really touches it that's come out in the last like 10 to 15 years. I know like everybody kind of points to Super Meat Boy as the preeminent indie platform title, but honestly, I think Celeste usurps it from what I've seen.
I don't know if it really does usurp Meat Boy. It certainly usurps it from a thematic and style, but over substance, I honestly don't know. If we're talking just pure gameplay down to the core mechanics, I might say that Meat Boy handles a little bit better than Celeste does in a lot of ways. There are some times where Celeste can feel at some times that you're not as in control as you might feel you need to be at certain points, because there are some mildly finicky controls that are required in order to do this particular gameplay that Celeste requests out of you. I never had that feeling with Super Meat Boy. If I ever failed in Super Meat Boy, I always had the feeling that was my fuck up. I did this to myself. It's not something that happens so often in Celeste that it really is a huge downside to me. It's more a matter of the way that they wanted this to be built. And it certainly, when you learn more and more of the controls, it makes more and more sense the design ideals they went with. It's certainly not like I had the feeling with the Messenger this year that the controls for the Messenger, while what they wanted, were not conducive to good gameplay. Meanwhile, Celeste certainly lent itself well to the type of game they wanted to make, and it's hard to argue against. This is a game how we want to make it, and this works. So, I mean, good for them, basically.
Yeah. I think that's something commendable to be able to make a game that's able to actually teach you how to play it in a very like productive way. Like you're not fighting against it. And I think that, that was another hallmark of what made Celeste so memorable this year.
Oh, absolutely. And for a first-time team like this, too, holy crap. I can't wait to see what they do now that they have made what is, it's going to be up there with Shovel Knight as some of the most beloved indie games I feel of all time. Joan, you got anything else for us?
I haven't played it, so there's nothing I can say. It's one of those games that I would like to play. I don't know how good I'd be at it. I'd probably have to be that person that uses invincibility. But, like I'm not that type of person who's like, oh, I gotta play in hard mode, and to really be a gamer. And it's like, no, I don't give a shit. Like I don't care.
Oh, and that's why I like the game. As I said, I am kind of that, casual gamer who just enjoys a game for the sake of it being a game, which I think is why the game resonates with me so much, is that it doesn't ask for you to, that's why I wouldn't put Super Meat Boy on one of my favorite games of all times list, is what it asks of you is just not anything I'm interested in. If you're talking pure mechanics, I would still say Super Meat Boy probably outpaces it. But from just a game and feel aspect, I would definitely put Celeste, hand and fit or whatever above Super Meat Boy. Well, Joan, shall we go on to your number 3 of the year?
Sure. Now, my list is a little different. You've noticed that I haven't played a lot of new games this year. That's because I'm fucking broke. So, my list is... Yeah. My list... Well, right now, my only income is through Twitch. So, my money, when I do get it, it's like, oh, here's stuff that has to be paid, or here's a book that I want to get, and that's it. So my list is going to comprise of games that I want to play at some point that look really good.
But let's face it, it's 2018. People don't just consume games in physically playing it anymore. And I have watched you watch enough Twitch that if anybody has an idea of what's out there, how it plays, what it looks like, it's probably you.
Yeah, but there's something to be said for sitting down with a game and... Like, if you're watching a game that has choices, making those choices for yourself, or thinking, oh, I would have done this instead, or blah, blah, blah. So, for example, this game here, this is Dragon Quest Builders. It's a game that when I heard about it, I was like, oh, this is a fun little sort of spin-off on the whole Minecraft genre, where you have to build and everything else. And near as I can tell, there's a little story behind it. You have to rebuild a town and protect against monsters. And I've always enjoyed the Dragon Quest, Dragon Warrior, or whatever you want to call it, aesthetics and feel of the game. They were always like really cute and especially the 8-bit, the 16-bit stuff. They were cute, they were enjoyable. A lot of really, you're talking about game feel before, like even though it's an RPG, it felt fun to play. And the only Dragon Quest I really played was Dragon Quest IV. But this concept, just seems like a lot of fun to me, especially since, from what I understand, you can kind of build your town however you want and customize it and things like that. Any game that lets you kind of go willy-nilly and build things the way you want to build them and have that sort of customization, I'm 100% for. And I used to play a lot of Minecraft, especially when it was still in alpha. So this just kind of goes back to that, like, oh, I fight monsters, I gotta get, dirt, and I have to, build a city up and whatever, and there's slime. So, like, you're combining sort of the best of both worlds here. And then also, like, looking at the what we're playing right now, like, the graphics to me are really, really cute. They've got that sort of classic DQ style feel to them. They didn't skimp out for the sake of doing a Minecraft clone. So, this is going to be... Like I said, I haven't played it, so I can't get too in-depth as far as what else the game offers, any flaws it might have. But from my impressions... This is definitely a game from 2018 that I would like to get my hands on. I know it's available on Switch now, So that's going to be something that I'm looking forward to obtaining, hopefully at some point. And yeah, that's my number 3.
Right on. What makes it different to you than, say, like your Minecrafts of the world? Because definitely, like the overworld aesthetic, at least, appears very Minecrafty from the look of it.
Well, aesthetically, yeah, but it still has, at least graphics-wise, like it still has that very solid, oh, this is Dragon Quest, because of the texture of the bricks, the texture of the characters, the monsters themselves, you know, like I said, slime, and that immediately gets me because everybody loves slime. And I think with this, like the fact that you can have townspeople, and I think you can like have them in your town, and it's different than the villagers that you'd have in Minecraft, and they're just sort of there. There's a little more robustness, I think, to that, if I'm understanding what I've read correctly. So I mean, that alone is what kind of makes me go, oh, okay, this is neat. And with Dragon Quest, I'm sorry, go ahead.
What you're telling me is it's Minecraft crossed with Animal Crossing.
Kind of.
And it's a joke game. I wonder why.
Yeah, probably. But see, like even this, like you can make healing cream, you can make a tour, like you know, it's little touches of Dragon Quest. And if this is like even if all it was Minecraft, but in the Dragon Quest world, I'd be kind of happy with that, because Dragon Quest worlds are usually pretty fun and they're very engaging.
Right on.
Yeah, this looks like the perfect way to get me to actually sit down and play a like sandbox style creativity like playground like Minecraft or Terraria.
Yeah.
So this is like, because I am much more like, give me a directive, give me a story, give me something to work towards, than just say like, here's a big environment, do whatever the fuck you want with it. So like actually like taking that aesthetic and putting it into something that has some direction and some story to it, like that's intriguing to me. And I'm not the hugest JRPG fan in the world, but like this could suck me in, I could tell.
Yeah. And even this right here, like apparently you could do requests for villagers and stuff. So that immediately is like, oh, you got me. You got me.
Right on. All right, Brian, shall we do your number 2?
We can definitely do number 2, although I think everyone is intimately familiar with this one, considering that we covered it on stream whenever it came out. Good old Donut County.
This game was a lot of fun. This game is just like this is a game. This is one of those games, Travis, like you were saying, that I didn't need to play it to enjoy it. It was just really, really fun to watch and to be entertained by. It was great. I loved it.
Yeah,
well, even as we were going through it, you were constantly like, no, look over there, and you were definitely more into it than a lot of games we've played before on stream.
Well, I think for me it was that sort of reverse Katamari feel. Like, and you know, you're just doing what you got to do, and it was cute because like I was getting really into it. It was like, no, you missed this, you gotta go back and do this, and watch out for the bees or whatever. Like it was just engaging. Like they took a concept and they sort of reversed it, and it just looked really, really fun.
Yeah, I think one of the best things about this game is that you get 2 totally different experiences from watching someone else play it and then playing it yourself. You know, like we all watched you play this, Travis, and we just had a ball just like calling out different things around the environment, you know, making fun of different things, figuring out the physics of stuff. And then like whenever you actually get your hands on it and like can actually like maneuver through these situations yourself, like you find different, not necessarily different ways of doing everything, even though there are like different sequences to get stuff to fall through. But like there's such a fun like experimental playground with the physics that Ben Esposito created with this thing. And the fact that it took him, I believe, like 5 years to make, like this is a labor of love that I enjoyed every second of. I want more like it.
Yeah.
The only real detriment was that like it was really short, but it didn't need to be any longer than it was. It just makes me really look forward to whatever he has coming down the pipeline next.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Not to mention like the writing is outstanding. The characters, like BK is probably like my number 1 raccoon boy of all time now. BK is
great delivery.
Such a trash boy. but he's so good. Yep, and like outside of BK and the other characters, like the writing and like the style, the Trashopedia entries in this game. You can just spend an hour going through all the different descriptions in this thing, and you will be entertained for that entire hour. Like every single detail in this thing elicits a laugh. It elicits and also it delivers a message as well. You know, it's just pure unadulterated fun. It's what video games are kind of meant to be in some ways. You know, video games, they're meant to be fun. They also are an art form to say something with, to like produce different experiences, to relate to different communities and that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, sometimes you just want something super dumb to go home to, like trying to suck snakes and cactuses into a hole in the earth.
Like games don't necessarily have to be AAA experiences all the time. It could be just something goofy, like trying to eat a snake. Like and you can
that's
good.
Sorry. But I was just gonna say, like, and that's the other thing too, is like this game translates to both console and mobile back in the same fashions. Like it doesn't, you don't lose any of the experience depending on what platform you play it on. I think that's very commendable as well for the design. I didn't mean to cut you off there though.
No, I can't remember what I was gonna say. It's all right. It's all right. But like you could tell, like even talking about the Trashpedia for a second, like I love developers and designers who take the time to add those little details that like most people would be like, you know, like whatever about. But they really put an effort into like the people who would search that stuff out, like it's there. Like most people might not appreciate or realize it, but the people who do look for it, it's there, and they keep those kind of players in mind, and I think it's really neat. But yeah, like I said, even though I didn't play it, just really fun, really engaging. The story is cute. I love the human that BK works with. She's pretty great.
Yeah, I can say for a fact myself, like, I haven't felt as much like that I got a vibe of the developer themselves from playing a game as I did out of playing this game. Like, it's been since Cave Story since I've got a feeling that this is a developer that really knows what they want to say and how they want to say it.
Yeah. It's just a bunch of snakes and trash. That's
so good.
Snakes and trash.
Oh, it's such my aesthetic. God, so good. But I mean, if anybody doesn't have anything else to say about the beautiful Donut County, I think we can move on to Trav's number 2.
Yeah, it's great. Go get it if you haven't played it.
And Donut County actually is a good segue into it, because whereas I love Donut County for what it did, my one problem with Donut County myself was that it felt a little bit one note. That, you know, it's a great comedy game, but I didn't really get a whole lot else out of it. Meanwhile, Wandersong was one of the games that I felt so much out of when I played it. The story, it's a fairly simple story when you look at it on just the book. You are playing as a bard who sings to solve puzzles, and you are on a quest to find the song that can fix the world. But the quest that it takes you on goes to so many places story-wise that I didn't expect. You know, if it had been the story that I had expected from a game like this, it would be nowhere on this list. Even with how charming the presentation, the platforming, the puzzles, the dialogue, all of that is, it's really comes down to how much effort they went in to tell a unique story that I've never seen anything like it, honestly. And it's impossible to go into the story itself because that's one of the major charms of the game, is just seeing where it goes. It's definitely it's an adventure game of the likes I haven't seen in years. Whereas a lot of adventure games now seem to have you following a certain set of puzzles and dialogue to find out what's going on, yada yada. It's an adventure in the classical sense of the phrase. It is taking you to places, and some of those places will surprise you, they'll charm you. There's a part that made me tear up slightly during this game, which doesn't happen to me terribly often, especially not from video games. So it's a hell of a job. The only negatives I could possibly say is that the gameplay at times can be a little janky. But I'm not gonna lie, the gameplay itself is not what you play a Wander Song for. It's the gameplay is there as a mechanic to get you to place and place, and that's really the only failure that I could possibly put on the game is that the gameplay often takes a backseat to both narrative and form and structure. So if you're expecting a challenge or anything along those lines, this is not the game for you. But if you're looking for a game that is going to walk with you and tell you a new and interesting story and give you feelings, this is definitely the kind of game that I think you should definitely play. And that is my book report.
This game is on PC, so it's something that I want to get around to playing. Like, I know it's available on Switch,
Yes.
but like I have a feeling like I'd be able to sit down, and plus I could stream it, so like I can sit down and really do a deep dive into it and have some fun with it. Like it's cute, it's charming. I've seen you play a little bit of it, but I didn't want to watch because I'm like, oh, this is a game that's going to have a lot of interesting narrative, so I don't want to spoil that for myself. But just looking at it, like it's about music, it's about being a bard. Like you got me. That's that's a couple of like music games, or you're already speaking my language. So this is definitely a game that I want to get around to obtaining at some point.
Yeah, I think I'm on the same page there. I really think Wonder Song is one of the games of this year that really kind of validates the whole idea of streaming, because I'm going to be frank, this game was not on my radar on release, and I would not have known about it if we had not streamed it with you, Travis. So, and this that short like hour that we spent with it, like that experience kind of sold me on it. Like, I'm glad that it's on PC because I originally thought it was only on Switch, and there was no way I was going to be able to play it at this time. So knowing that it is available for PC, that makes me very happy to know I can go back to it. But even then, like just watching the game, it effectively communicates its play style, its tone, its uh, message, and just how quirky the story is. Um, it really sucks you in, and I think that as we keep moving forward and streaming remains a very large factor within video game circles. I'm sure this game would have landed on the tip of my tongue just based off of the circles that I run in online. But at the same time, being able to actually see this thing and have it effectively communicate what it wants to do as like within like only a few minutes, I think Wonder Song works perfectly in that way, and I honestly can't wait to get my hands on it as well.
Wander Song is what we're talking about right now, Vibrant. It's a PC and Switch game. I would honestly strongly recommend getting it on the PC over the Switch. As nice as it is to have it portable, I do feel like the Switch's analog sticks can be a bit of a deterrent in games that are very analog heavy, with as this game clearly is, since it's the main mechanic. I would recommend sticking with the PC release for it. Not that I would, say no to the Switch release, and if you are on the bus a lot, that's also fine. but this is a game that you're going to want to sit down when you play it and have some time, because each chapter of the story probably is about a good solid hour. So you really don't want to have distractions while you're playing it, because a lot of the story, to get through it, you're really going to need uh, that time. You're going to need to be able to pay attention to what people are saying to you so you know how to solve the puzzles. Yeah, it's fairly strongly storyline based.
It's great.
But yeah, I think that about covers my number 2 game of the year, my number 2 song of the year. Joe, shall we move on to your number 2?
Sure.
Phrasing.
So, up next, I've got something which perhaps should be unsurprising to anybody who knows me. Little Witch Academia. It is not My Hero Academia, it's Little Witch Academia. It's based on an anime series, and it's about this girl named Akko, who's the character that you control. She is a aspiring witch, but she doesn't have a lot of power. And there's a storyline reason for that, so I don't want to get into it. But it's basically, it's a new storyline. It's something that, as far as I know, hasn't been seen in the show. It's so cute. It's an RPG. I forget what system it's on off the top of my head, but it's one of those things where the developers really took time into putting work into the characters, into the maps, into the story. Like, everything that I hear about it is that it stays fairly true to Akko's story and what she has to do and the trials and tribulations that she has to overcome. The graphics are pretty cute. They fit very well within the world of the anime. And honestly, anything where you can play as a witch and fly around and do spells and stuff like that. Again, it's a lot of these games are like right up my alley. Like, storyline right up my alley, RPG up my alley. Being a cute witch up my alley. So, again, this is my list on games that I hadn't gotten the opportunity to play, but I'd like to at some point. See, look at like she's listening in, and all the animation changes when she's being a Snoop, and then she's running. Like, it's little details like that really make it worth it for me. Because they just could have had her stand there, Like, it's awesome. It's cute. I love it, and it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun.
Well, is it more of an RPG or adventure game? What type of genre are we talking?
I think it's more of an RPG, if I understand correctly. It's definitely one of those games where you have to walk around and figure things out and things like that. But actually, I haven't seen the combat, so I'm not 100% sure. But they've got like little anime cutscenes that the same people who made the anime made the cutscenes, so there's a lot of consistency there. So I'm not sure. Like I said, I haven't really... Oh, wait, here we go. So here's some of the combat. So it looks like... Oh, that's neat. Okay, so yeah. It looks like it's sort of action RPG based.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Which, it's something that I'd give a try for sure. I'm definitely more of a person who prefers turn-based. But, again, it's with witches and you got spells, so I'm gonna give it a try. So, this is, like I said, this is Little Witch Academia Chamber of Time, and this is something I'd like to get my hands on sometime soon.
Dope. Okay. Then before we hit our disappointments of the year list, any games that you would want to just give a quick shout out that maybe didn't quite make your list?
Brian, do you want to go first?
I definitely have two. Sure, I have two, actually. One is Dead Cells. Dead Cells,
oh, yeah.
You want to talk about something that requires precision and is infinitely replayable. Like, that thing, dear Jesus. I'm so glad that it came out of early access this year so I could at least talk about it as being an actual release this go around. Because that game does, it maps out exactly what it wants to do, does it very well, and it keeps improving upon itself. All through its early access run, it just kept improving and improving and improving. And now that it's in 1.0, they have something that is it does the roguelike better than anything that I've seen before, while implementing elements of your Souls-like type games and outstanding combat, outstanding customization. It's just all around an outstanding experience. It's hard as hell. It is not like Celeste where you can dumb it down at all. So so if you don't want the challenge, it's definitely probably not something that's going to stick with you. But it is amazing, and I can't say enough good things about it. And then number two, this technically isn't a game that came out this year, but it's a mode and an add-on to a game that did, and it basically reinvigorated the way that I play a certain game. That would be the Fighting Road mode for Fire Pro Wrestling World. So Fire Pro Wrestling, if you I know I bring it up almost every time that we stream, and it's always just a little tidbit here and there, or me talking about staring into the wanting eyes of Tetsuya Naito. But Fire Pro is a game that I really don't actually play a lot. It's much more for simming and creating my own wrestling organizations and tournaments and stuff like that. It's fun. That's what I do for some of my streams that hopefully will be kicking off again soon. But Fighting Road actually gave me drew me into actually playing the game more than I have ever played Fire Pro ever. It takes you through a year in the life of New Japan Pro Wrestling, one of the better years in being 2017, and it gives you the chance to kind of play with different factions within New Japan Pro Wrestling. It's the storytelling is outstanding. It has a certain charm and a certain humor to it that you don't really expect from a wrestling video game, but being as it's based on the New Japan license, it really implements a lot of those characters that have this sort of altruistic view of pro wrestling. So literally, it's just do you want to team up with Tanahashi, who just it goes out there screaming, "I love you and I love pro wrestling" to all of his fans, or do you want to team up with Tetsuya Naito and be the aloof badass, or do you want to team up with Suzuki Minoru, who wants to try and tear down New Japan from inside? It's just there's so many different paths to take on it, and it also reminds you of how good the gameplay actually feels. And it sucked me in hard. I'm still working through all of the different paths right now, but it was just so good. And I know I'm the only one in this group that is ever going to touch this thing, so I had to say something about it because it is so good. Oh my god! Especially being with Wrestle Kingdom happening in less than 5 hours, 4 hours away. We're having WrestleMania of New Japan happening tonight, and I cannot say enough good things about this. And I'm just going to shut up now because I'm going to keep gushing about Japanese pro wrestling. And
I've never gotten the feeling that you love Firewatch Pro Wrestling ever in my entire life.
I know, right? It's a total, just total out of nowhere. Anyway, so those are my two.
My games that I would still recommend, I have to start off with Tetris Effect. It is just such a wonderfully chill version of Tetris. It takes you through all of these different environments and feelings. The gameplay moves and changes as you play. It's direct feedback for both music and physical responses. So as you're playing, the game reacts to you. And it's this weird syncopation of game that if you've ever played something like Rez before, which it's the same maker, so it's no surprise. It's a game that feels like it is in a way speaking to you, and is the weirdest feeling you'll ever have. And this may be the best version of Tetris I think I've ever played, which is an amazing statement given that Tetris is a game that's been remade 1 billion times in 30 years. So, strong recommendation for Tetris Effect. The other that I would give a recommendation for is Octopath Traveler. It's a classic JRPG made by Square Enix. There's 8 different characters that you can potentially play as. The combat is smooth. The boost system really adds something to the standard turn-based attack system that really makes building up and each battle its own unique thing. The only disappointment to me is that what it finally builds to, the penultimate, or actually the ultimate real ending of the game, is a bit of a slog and a bit of a letdown as to what's all going on around you. I won't go into that too detailed, but some of the characters are not as strong as the other characters in the game. There's not a lot of interaction between the 8 characters, but it is basically 8 stories that you play together in asynchronous order, and it's just fun and charming, and the artwork they put in this game is just fucking beautiful. Joan, anything not on your direct list?
Yeah, let me show you some games that I did get a chance to play. The reason I'm on the list is because my list is a little different. First up, there's Frostpunk. Now, this is a strategy game where you are an overseer, just for lack of a better phrase, and you are tasked with keeping everybody warm and alive in a global ice age. And temperatures can get down to 150 degrees negative Celsius. It gets really bad, and you have to sort of use whatever resources you can in order to survive. And it's something that I never expected that I would enjoy. But I was watching a streamer friend of mine play it, and I'm like, oh, this actually looks really interesting. Let me go give it a shot. And it was on sale at Good Old Games. And like you can see here, there are some direct choices that you have to make that will influence your society, the morale of your people. For example, if you sign in child shelters, you can make children study or not. And if they study, they help the adults. If they don't study, then they use more resources, but they become smarter when they grow up. Like it's all these little like moral choices that you have to make, and that's gonna determine what kind of society that you build. And you have so many days to make all of your citizens comfortable and healthy and happy before the big frost hits. And if it doesn't happen, then they all die. So you have to make sure you constantly have coal, you constantly have wood, you've got enough food for everybody, people are hunting. Like it's all this stuff that I never would have saw myself play this game, but it was just so engaging, and the morality choices and all the different ways you can go to build your city really held it in for me. So I played this quite a bit when it came out back in, I think, March or April, thereabouts, like first, second quarter. That was a lot of fun. And then a couple of days ago, thanks to a very generous donation from one of my Twitch followers, I got the opportunity to play the first episode of Life is Strange, and season 2, and it's fantastic. It's very hard hitting when it comes to discussing current politics. I don't want to show too much of this because it's a very story-based game, Life is Strange, so there's not too much I can show you without spoiling it. But it talks a lot about racism, just either casual racism or full-on racism. The immigrant quote-unquote controversy that's going on in the U.S. It talks about the struggle of being a young adult and choices that you have to make, and you have to watch your brother. And you have to make choices that are going to affect him and you, and the choices that you make affect him in a way that you can make him be kinder or make him be harsher, like as a sort of like you got to be hard in the world to survive, or no, you cooperate and you help people. Like it's a lot. So far, I'd argue it's even a little better than the first Life is Strange. I know some people are saying it's the opposite, but for me, it took away a lot of that cringy dialogue that the first Life is Strange had, and some of the choices that really didn't have a lot of effect. And it updated it and made it more modern, and it's absolutely relevant to the current political climate. I think this is a game, like I think both games, really, both seasons will hold up as time passes. It's wonderful. Like, the second episode is supposed to come out sometime this month. I'm really looking forward to it. I don't want to describe what happened in my playthrough because it's going to be different for everybody, and again, I don't want to spoil it because it's a very story-based game. Like, there's no combat or anything. Like, it's a very much like a quote-unquote walking simulator. But if that's up your alley, even if you haven't played the first Life is Strange, you can enjoy this. You just keep in mind that the politics are very left-leaning. It advocates for a certain political viewpoint, so if you're more right or more conservative, you might not enjoy this game as much as somebody who is more left-leaning. But it's, that being said, like, it's I highly recommend everybody play it. Like, it puts you in the shoes of a family having to deal with racism and discrimination and all this, and it's just wonderful. It's really great. Highly recommend it. Go get it. It's like the first episode's I think like $7. Just play it.
Right on. Well, I think then we've hit our other games' memorable mentions. Brian, what game is your disappointment for 2018?
After much careful deliberation, I think I've come to the conclusion that Fallout 76, the hot mess that is Fallout 76, has to be at the top of my list. There are worse experiences out there, I think. Looking right at the Quiet Man.
Yeah.
But for what Bethesda sold to its audience compared to what was actually delivered, Fallout 76 has to be the single most disappointing release of the year.
And
I mean, considering that, sorry.
No, and this is also where I agree with Brian on here. This is also my big disappointment for 2018. As the two of you know, I greatly enjoy Fallout, the modern Fallouts, and I went into this, I pre-ordered it. I was like, this is going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to play with people, and I want to make like a doctor type character and, go and help people in the wasteland and not be a dick and all this other stuff. And then when we got the chance to play through the beta, it was like, okay, this is still the beta. There's still some stuff they're working on. I'll give it an opportunity, and see what happens once it actually goes live for everybody else. And it turned out to be exactly the same. And I feel really bad because, like, I was trying to convince my husband, like, no, it's gonna be fun. And it is, to its credit, I gotta give the devil a fifth of its due here. When you're playing with people that you, like, are, you're playing with friends or family, it is a lot of fun. When it was still in beta, I was playing with my husband and I was having a blast. When I play with my brother, we got it for him for his birthday. He was having a blast with it. We were just having fun playing together. But if you're playing with people who aren't into the team spirit, or if you're playing solo, like, this isn't a game you can really play solo. I know Todd says you can, but you're not going to get anywhere near as much enjoyment out of it. And God, just everything from the bugs to, like, what you were saying, Brian, like, we were marketed that you would be able to, like, build these really great bases and have, like, a thriving player economy, and things would be great and it would be awesome, and don't worry about NPCs because it's you'll have different ways to do quests and this and that, and that's not what we got.
No, it's not at all.
The world, and I know this is gonna seem a little hypocritical because, like, it's a post-apocalypse, right? So of course the world is meant to feel a little lonely, but the world without NPCs just feels desolate. It's the same sort of fetch quest for every robot NPC that you come across, essentially, and I could slip when it was human NPCs, like, hey, we need these resources, otherwise we're gonna die, or, you know, we need you to go and stop this raider because, you know, they're taking all of our crops or some shit. Like, that's fine. But it's just, there's nothing engaging about the quest, and you go into a city thinking, oh, okay, let's see what kind of lore we can find and learn about them, and there's just nothing. Like, there's just absolutely nothing, and like I said, as a Fallout fan, I mean, I'll still go back and play it from time to time. I played a little bit of it last week, but it's just it's so disappointing. I mean, this is a game that we should not have spent $60 on in retrospect, and I feel terrible because like I said, I was convincing my husband, like, no, it'll be okay, it'll be a good game, it'll be fun, and now I just feel like a huge dickbag.
I mean, honestly, though, you wouldn't have known that this was going to be the end product from the way that they talked it up, and that is definitely something that's a whole commentary on hype culture that plenty of people have gotten into over the past year, especially with like some of the bigger releases this year. But the best way that I can sum up Fallout 76 is that Bethesda promised this giant community building landscape where you can have a ton of free reign, much more than you actually have in the game, I feel. But what they actually delivered was a more inept, more buggy, like offshoot of Gary's mod.
I mean, we can
that doesn't let
spend
you do anywhere near the fun.
I mean, we could
that
spend a
you
whole
have.
podcast just talking about the ways in which Fallout 76 failed.
Yeah.
It's I mean, man, from the glitches to the bugs to the promise of community building, which you hardly can because you can only build your bases on flat land, and Appalachia is not exactly flat land. And it's, I mean, like, for example, like, in the trailer, you saw that there was, like, a big community there, and there was, like, different bases next to each other, and it was like, oh, cool, we can make, like, little cities and shit. And in the game, you can't do that. You can't overlap, there's only so much space you can have that's yours, and you can't put, like, two building, you know, like, you and your friends' bases next to each other to make, like, a little, like, even, like, a little village or something. It's just, and that seems nitpicky, but for people like me who the character creation and the character building and wanting to do things like create a city or a town or something, you know, it's disappointing because we were promised something and they didn't deliver. And that's on top of the myriad of other things that they promised and didn't deliver on. So I don't know. It's just, it's a mess, and they could have done better. And I think they you know, obviously need to start by addressing all the fucking bugs and stuff that they dealt with, and I really think they should have taken the opportunity to put NPCs in here that were human, because holy shit, what that to me, that's even worse than the bugs in a lot of ways. I don't know.
Well, my failure of the year went, and this tells you how long this fucking year has been. Do you remember that Metal Gear Survive was this year?
Right?
That was a 2018 launch.
Oh my god.
I do, because I played the beta. I actually played Metal Gear Survive for all of 2 hours.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And it is fucking, the only positive thing I can say about it is that the gameplay itself in parts is good, only because they took the Fox engine. The Fox engine's fucking great. And that is the only good thing I could say.
And that's not even something that they should be able to take accomplishment for. Like, it was fucking Kojima Productions and that team. Like, what a fucking garbage mess this is. And I feel like I can say that as a Metal Gear fucking fanatic. What the fuck is this?
Yeah, you took a Metal Gear game, and it has nothing to do with Metal Gear. It's an alternate reality world that the soldiers from the base get sucked into, where they have to survive until they can return. The plotline is nothing related to Metal Gear Solid whatsoever. This could have been literally fucking anything, and it would have worked just the fucking same. You took a series, even a game like Acid, where the gameplay itself was nothing related to Metal Gear, still felt like a Metal Gear game. It still had that energy and vibe. Meanwhile, Survive had nothing. fucking nothing of the same energy that was brought to the Metal Gear series. And as somebody who loves Metal Gear, you know, I was already angry when they fired Kojima, but to see them make a fucking zombie survival game, that shit has been done so hard to death. And by the time
Look
this
at
game
this.
came out,
Look
there
at
weren't
this.
even enough players for you to matchmake after a month of this game being out.
No, this thing was dead on arrival, dude. Like this thing was dead on arrival after the beta came out.
This is just.
Like I had trouble matchmaking during the beta when all you could do was play multiplayer. If that tells you anything about how quickly the player base dwindled on this thing.
Like, what the fuck is this? What the fuck? Like, I mean, if you're gonna be transparent in ripping off survival games, you don't, one, have to use a beloved franchise to do so. Two, just completely take the piss. Like, this is just hot garbage. There's nothing else I can say. It's just shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, this game, flames and just
on the side of my face. Fucking hell.
Oh.
Look at this shit. Just fucking zombies. Like, and I know some people would be like, well, Metal Gear was always a game that like played loose with magic and you know, nanomachines and all that shit. But it's like, nah, dog, not like this. Not like this.
Yeah, and that's the charm of Metal Gear.
Exactly. Like I was going to say the exact same thing. That's the charm of it.
The zombies are decoy octopus.
Yeah, all the zombies are decoy octopus.
God damn it! I played all of the game, Hollis. There is no decoy octopus. The joke is lost now.
I'm gonna turn this off now because it makes me sad.
All right, Joan, did you have a disappointment of the year other than Fallout?
Really, the biggest thing for me was Fallout, because that's a game that we actually spend money on. Like, we were like, okay, we don't have a lot of money. What's a big game we can get this year? And I was like, let's get Fallout 76, because this is a game that's multiplayer, and I can keep going with it, build my base, and it was just that.
Fair enough. Then let's go to our number one game of the year. Brian, what is your number one game of the year?
So, if you know me, I think it's pretty easy to tell what I would have chosen for this, just based off of my tweets and my excitement. I'm going to go with Swery 65's latest title, The Missing. The Missing, this game, Jesus. There's a reason why when we did that Game Awards stream that I was pulling for this thing to win Games for Impact so much, because the message behind this game, much more so than the gameplay, the very creative puzzles, as well as the environments, the messaging behind this game is what really set this thing apart and what vaulted it to the top for me. The fact that this game opens with just a text screen that says like, this game is for everyone who just wants to be themselves. Basically, I'm paraphrasing. I can't remember the exact quote on there, but this is all about acceptance of oneself and trying to find oneself and define oneself, and then trying to cope with like the outward world not being able to accept you for what you see yourself as. You know, there's a large narrative here that relates to both the queer community and specifically the trans community, both like outright in the story and also in its themes and its messaging and the writing of it. Some of the cell phone text message conversations that happen in this game, like you were talking about Wandersong making you cry, Travis. This game left me in like a ball at points. just knowing, like, just knowing the experiences of people within these communities, having my own experiences, um, with um, a lack of acceptance or intolerance. Um, like this game hits close to home, and the mechanics within it, where you're basically like harming yourself in order to progress. Like you are actively like tearing yourself down to find the will to move forward. You have to go through the pain and the hardship to come out the other side a more complete whole person. And the fact that like it does that, but it also gives you the ability to kind of reconstitute yourself in the mechanics. So at any point you can like reform, knowing that no matter what pain you go through, you're still there. You're still validated as the person that you see yourself as. Um, like the game itself was fun to play. It was challenging at times, but not overly. But honestly, nothing compares to like the personal um, nature that this game really delivered for me. And I cannot tell enough people to play this game. I know that there's definitely some triggering stuff in terms of like the self harm and the violent imagery within the game itself, but you want to talk about a game about self discovery and about things that are vitally important. No, like they've always have been, but they are much more prescient nowadays. Like this game speaks to anyone who has ever felt alone or other in a way that I have not seen from any other title.
It's hard to really say or ask much out of this game. I played a good chunk of it myself. The puzzles can be a little bit more complicated than you may expect, but overall, it's an enjoyable, interesting game. At least I think.
No, I'm right there with you, and also like outside of that stuff, like even if you're just wanting a game that delivers on the general like sweary ridiculousness that you come to expect with his titles, like it delivers probably one of the more memorable like dumb characters that you've ever seen in a sweary game in the Deer Doctor. I mean, honestly, I found myself just walking around the apartment saying like Major Hemorrhage out loud to myself, to the point that like my partner is like, "What is wrong with you? Like why are you just saying like dumb nonsense?" So it's just it the characters stick with you, in a very sweary way, but also in a way that I think does more than any sweary title has to this point.
Yeah, and if you've played a sweary game before, it's it's sweary all over, and the man is just fucking good at providing unique story. It is not for the faint of heart. It is grisly at points. But I would strongly recommend it.
Yeah, wholeheartedly.
All right. My game of the year is not a terribly surprising one, I don't think. When you think classic fun of just sitting down with your friends, of just a game you can just sit down and play for the sake of playing, Smash Brothers is just there. And I haven't really felt Smash Brothers in a long time. Probably not since before college, to be honest with you. So that's been a good decade. But Smash Brothers Ultimate, listen, I can't tell you the number of times I've played it. On this road trip, I've played it with 8 different people now. My nephew had to play it, so did my niece, and then friends of my brother had to play it at their house. And then while I was down here, my buddy Ando wanted to play it. And this isn't like, oh, you brought your Switch along with you. This is, hey, play it on my system. I want to play it and also unlock more characters. This is just fucking fun. It's man, I can't begin to express to you the amount of just it's a simple thing. It really is. But sometimes I feel like you need simple in your life. And I hadn't realized until I sat down to this how much I needed just a good, simple game to sit down and do something with. And this game's got it in spades.
No, I think there's a vital reason why this franchise generates as much excitement as it does, and Ultimate, from everything that I've seen, because I haven't gotten to personally play the game, but from everything that I've seen, it delivers on all of that and then some. Just looking at the roster itself, just the roster before you get into anything else in it, like that's enough to put it over the top in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the roster is great, and even the single player. The single player isn't as good as what was it? Anyway, it isn't as good as it's been in previously, but it beats the fuck out of Smash 4. So yeah, I can't recommend it enough. But yeah, get it. If you enjoy fighting games whatsoever, this is right there.
Or even just Nintendo characters and a Sleepy Mario. Like it's
Yeah, just celebrate all of these franchises. Also, put Waluigi in the game. I can't stress it. I'm never going to let that down. I can't. I'm never going to put Waluigi in it.
All right, Joan, what do you got for us for number one?
Well, it's perhaps not surprising that my number one game I would like to play is also Nintendo-based. It's Pokemon Let's Go Eevee. I am not the big Pokemon person in the house. That would be my husband. He knows everything that there is to know about Pokemon. He is, for all intents and purposes, a true Poke master. But I didn't get the chance to play the original Pokemon when it was released for the Game Boy, and
Did you say E-Boy?
no, I said Game Boy. I didn't say E-Boy. What the hell is an E-Boy?
E-Boy was released in 1999 to only
Electronic Boy.
Yeah, but it's from what I understand, it's a colorful total remaster of the first Pokemon games. Where you get to have a Pikachu or an Eevee with you. And I'm like, okay, if I'm gonna go ahead, like, I'm not gonna go and get a Game Boy just to experience Pokemon, especially since Pokemon usually isn't on my alley. But, I mean, this presentation is super cute. I like really fun, doofy, casual games where I can just sit and enjoy, like, a simple story from time to time. Like, not everything has to be a Life is Strange or hard-hitting or emotional to get. I mean, like, sometimes I just want to sit and have fun with a goofy story. So the fact that this is a remastered version of Pokemon, you can have a partner Pokemon, you can feed them, you can pet them, whatever. Like, it's cute. It's cute, and I want to play it, and it looks like a lot of fun. Especially since there's not like 3,000 Pokemon that I have to catch. It's the original 150, which I grew up watching the anime, so all I knew was the original 150 or 151. So it's like, oh, I can look at all my middle school favorites in, better rendered, and I can catch them, and it looks cute. So this is a game that I want to get around to playing, especially since everybody and their mother is like, oh, it's fun, it's polished, it's really responsive, it's great. So yeah, this is probably going to be my top one. A game I want to play. As somebody who has almost zero interest in Pokemon, this looks like a lot of fun. And they also have Pidgey, which is one of my favorite Pokemon. So, yeah, this is a game I want to get.
Make sure you get a good ball going in.
All right. I mean, here's my thought on Pokemon Let's Go. It's that it seems to distill the Pokemon idea down to its very core of catch 'em all. That was the one thing that always got me about the original Pokemon is the amount of fucking work it takes to catch them all in the original game. Meanwhile, in this one, like you want to go wander in the hot tall grass. You know, you want to go out of your way to go find the things. It feels like it fixes a lot of what was a problem with the original Pokemon.
Yeah,
And
like
that's fucking rad.
like for me, like watching my because my brother was really big into Pokemon when he was a kid. Like it just looked like a fucking grind, and I'm like, this game isn't fun. I'm gonna go back to my game, Final Fantasy X, which ironically was a grind.
Oh,
But
I was going to say a fucking grind. You said.
no, but it's just like it held no interest for me. It was like, okay, this is boring. There's no real story. All you're doing is catching Pokemon. I don't want to catch them all. I just want to catch my favorites. Yeah, and I don't give a shit about filling out the Pokedex or whatever. Like I still don't. But like it makes it so simple to catch a Pokemon. If you wander in the tall grass, you can see the Pokemon that are there, so you can like avoid them or try to. It's just it dumbs down the process. And I know like a lot of hardcore Pokemon fans are like, oh, it makes it really simple and blah blah. It's like, first of all, this is still a game for children. So, and then second of all, I as just a casual fan, I don't need the competitive stats where like Rock is 1.5 times stronger than this, and then I need to bring up my EVA points to what. Like I just want to fucking play the game. So this, even if it's simplistic and dumbed down, like it looks fun and it's right up my alley.
First question is, can it still run
Absolutely.
on surf?
And that's the thing that I think is important that a lot of people miss in the game is it fun? And you know, who cares if this game will make your dick huge or not?
Right.
Doesn't matter.
Right, I don't care. Like it just it looks interesting, and it looks like it's a fun game I could just spend a couple of hours with every day and go, oh, I caught a Pidgey. I'm a little happier today. Like, I don't care.
All right. Well, I believe that does it for all of our games of the year for this year. Brian, you got anything else you want to give to us?
Wrestle Kingdom is 3.5 hours away, and I cannot wait to watch all of my fancy Wrestle boys with their glorious hairdos punch it up.
Punch it up, punch it up, punch it up.
Yeah.
Joe, you got anything for us?
I'm not too thrilled about the upcoming releases in 2019. I'm waiting, you know, as always, like everybody, for your E3s and for your other conferences, see what's come out. But you know, considering what kind of 2018 was kind of lackadaisical when it came to game releases. So I don't know. Like I'm looking forward to hopefully getting my hands on some of those titles that I mentioned, and really looking forward to Animal Crossing Switch whenever the hell that comes out, probably the second half of the year. And we'll see what happens. Fingers crossed.
Cool. And you know what? We are the Mr. Video Game of 2018. We don't need to name the Mr. Video Game. We are Mr. Video Game.
I'll take it.
For better or worse.
Thanks everyone who listened. Bound Alley, you know, thank you for coming along. I'm excited to see what 2019 brings along for us, and I will see everyone next week.
Yep, we'll catch you then. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Happy New Year.
Okay, tackle